Welcome to Reef Beef. This podcast is predicated on the idea that we are pretending that we are at a big trade show, that we've all had a great time think tanking with each other about crazy, amazing ideas about our hobby and industry. And now we're retiring to the lobby bar to talk smack and have a good time and have really interesting discussions. That's what Reef Beef is supposed to be about. Hopefully this show will make you feel that. My name is Rich.
And my name is Ben.
And today on the Reef Beef universe, we are going to be talking to our friend Rob Mougey about capitalism and the hobby. Oh, that sounds exciting, right? But that's essentially what we're going to talk about. And we're going to do an Ask Reef Beef and catch up with me and Ben, and we'll see what's going on. This show is brought to you by saltwateraquarium.com, Champion Lighting and Supply, and powered by PolypLab. This is Reef Beef. Ben, is that you, Ben? I'm not sure I recognize you in the mask.
I live in a pineapple under the sea.
I have to take a picture of you with that on and send it to my friend who produces and directs that show.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think that's really funny. Actually, remember that picture we put up? One of the beefers made it. It's of me surfing. It's a cartoon of us.
Yeah.
I have it. I'll send it so it goes up. I put that on Facebook just for fun. I was like, check this out. And he wrote back going, hey, if that project goes, let me know how I can help.
Oh, that's the one that almost looked like Phineas and Ferb or something
Yeah. Which is really funny. And I just saw that go by the other day on my desktop. I have no idea who made that. So if you're the beefer who made that, there'll be a picture of it here. Please let us know because it's awesome.
Yeah.
What's going on with you, Ben?
Not much, because the work week is starting next week. So I'm not in a place where I have any fresh things going on aquarium wise in my head.
Okay.
I know
you have a beef. Should we talk about what's going on in my world and then we'll beef?
Yeah.
Nothing's going on in my world. There's no.
No, the breeding.
No, the spawning.
Happened. Spawning, nothing.
The spawning. There was no spawn this month. It'll happen next month. I've got a couple of days down. I'm very excited. I can relax. And but I'm still staying up late. I was talking to my wife this morning about how cool it is that my entire life has changed and for the spawn. I'm sleeping in till like 10 or 11 now because I've got on a night that it spawns, I'll be awake and working straight through till 11. Normally I go to bed with my wife at 8 or 8:30 because I love my wife. And if I'm on that schedule, I'm going to make mistakes. So through the spawn in the next month or two, I am staying up late. I do have something. I can do a cool show and tell.
Do it.
Cool show and tell. I've been working with Ryan Snodgrass of Slide Lock.
Oh, okay.
Who made make these frag racks and these lunchbox. The thing that I like so much was called the lunchbox, and it's a frag rack you put inside a Tupperware that clips shut, so all your stuff is safe, right? All your
Is that sort of thing that you can use at a trade show if you bought some frags?
Yeah. It's basically a Tupperware with one of these in it, and this goes in the Tupperware. I'm sorry I don't have a Tupperware here. And your frags go in here, and they're held in place by this silicone, and you're great. So I love these because I can show you. Let me just grab it real quick.
Oh, I see. So the silicone will be much more grabby on it.
So here's the Tupperware, right? And it's got a lid. I don't have a lid, but and then that goes in the Tupperware with your frags, and you're all good.
Yeah.
Why I love these is because this Tupperware is the perfect size to put under a microscope. And this is about the right number of frag plugs that I want to have with baby corals on them. So this goes into the tank when I need to scrape all the algae and pests off the frag plugs. I pull it out, put it in there in this Tupperware, and it goes under the microscope, and I can do all the work, right? Wow. That's the hard part. The pain has been, this just goes on the bottom of the tank and sits there. I want it up. If I can, I want it off the bottom, and I want it to, I don't want it to flip over. I don't want crap to land on it. So I talked to Ryan about that, and we came up with this.
Oh, it's got little legs.
He did this. It's a magnet. So it magnets onto the side of your aquarium. Pretend that's your aquarium. That's living in the aquarium. Here I am with my corals, my baby corals.
Ooh.
Snaps in place. That's not coming off now. So I can have tons of these on the side of the tank, right? And then when it's time for me to look at them under the microscope, they just pop up and I pull the whole thing off.
Look at that. You're collaborating for new things for the hobby.
It's pretty slick. They ship terribly. A bunch of them came broken, but it took about 20 minutes for me to glue them all back because they didn't shatter. They just broke at the joints. But yeah, I think that's pretty cool. So hopefully next month we get a spawn and I get to use all this stuff. There, that's a long what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much going on with the tank too. And there's so much going on with I can show you this here, Ben. I'm not gonna talk about it, but I'm gonna show you.
Your green anemone's still doing good. I can see it there in the background.
This anemone's great. There's some Koji Wada pink nephew there too.
Yeah, I put some. I got some Koji Wada too. Oh, whoa! What the?
That's just a number 14 gauge basting needle.
Okay.
This is the stuff that's going to change your life.
Oh, are you finally letting me in on the secret?
Nope, I'm just teasing you again.
Oh, God.
But I did a bunch more work on it. And all I have to do now is bring a 5-gallon tank out and get some footage or some pictures of it happening. Otherwise, it's just me saying what's going on. I want some documentation. Yeah. But it's coming.
It's coming. It's coming.
Man, stuff takes time, man.
Well, yeah, you can't just blurt it out there.
It just you would think, you go, oh, I could be able to do this in a week. And it's like, no, man, there's so much stuff going on. And then it's like, oh, and I need this and I need this and I really need a camera person. Yeah. Because that stuff's hard for me to film. So that's why I'm going to put it in a little tank so I can film it.
But the needle on that syringe, it's not like a needle. It's probably a long version of what you get with Aphaptasia.
Yeah, it's not a pointy needle.
Just a tube.
Yeah, but you could sharpen it if you wanted it to be pointy. And while injecting this stuff is awesome, just putting it on is pretty awesome too.
Yeah.
So yeah, kill stuff dead.
On that needle, here's what comes to thought, because that needle's so long. I wonder how many mils you get to where you fill the needle. Does that syringe possibly need to be like a size larger?
It could be as large as you want it to be, right? I mean, I fill up the syringe from the bottle with a tiny needle.
Yeah.
And then I pop it off and I put this one on.
Because that might be a good 1 mil. 2 mils in
it might be. So you put whatever size you want on the back. I like this 3 mils because I'm still a little worried about what this is doing to the tank. It's doing nothing. Craig Bingman. Craig, nothing. It's awesome. It's amazing.
It's probably just water.
No, there's a lot more stuff on that label than water. And you see me wiping my hands every time it comes up.
Yes. It's caustic.
It is. Oh my, that. And also, this is like the laser, which I've been working on for a million years. I'm a little nervous about people just using them and fucking shit up and hurting themselves and other people. So when we talk about that, we will talk about that.
This is just Rich babbling.
Ben.
Yes, Richard.
Ben.
Richard.
If you had a saltwater aquarium, where's a place you might think of to go to get products for your saltwater aquarium?
There's so many out there, but one of them just screams out to me in the darkness of the night, and that is saltwateraquarium.com.
Ben, it's me.
And they make that very easy though with a mobile app. That's what's so great. I mean, I could be in the darkness of the night and just flip it open and order right there. It makes it easy. And another thing is that they get it so fast to you because they do have 3 locations that they spread out strategically across the continental United States so they can get it out to you as fast as possible. Look at that, coast to coast, baby.
Yeah.
They got it all covered. But anyways, they have all sorts of products. Check them out, all your reefing needs. And they've supported us since nearly the very beginning. So we love them so much for that. So please support the people who support us.
Yeah.
That's how you can do that.
And how would you get to saltwateraquarium.com? If I were on the internet and I wanted to go to saltwateraquarium.com to buy some products, how would I do that, Ben?
You know, it's crazy because it's in the name, saltwateraquarium.com.
That's really smart.
It's that easy. I mean, your name is the URL right there.
That's great.
Couldn't be any easier. Between the name and the mobile ordering and then the shipping, I just don't know what else that you would need. Just get at it.
And where is it? What was it again?
Saltwateraquarium.com.
The end.
This is just Rich babbling.
This is just Rich babbling.
You had a beef. We had a lot of stuff, but then we decided we are going to talk to Rob. So
yeah.
What else is there you wanted? What did you want to go over now before we go to Rob?
So it wasn't a beef. Well, originally my beef was about aperture, but this conversation with Rob is going to take care of all of that.
Gotcha. Now you love aperture.
All of that and more. But we did receive an Ask Reef Beef question.
Ask Reef Beef. I love Ask Reef Beef. Do you need me to read it?
No, I got it here. You could read it verbatim, but it's actually pretty simple. Lawrence was asking, basically, hey, when you clean, he specified a return pump, but if you clean a return pump, he's wondering, can you just take it and run it in citric acid without taking it apart and putting that? I want to expand on his question a little bit.
Go,
and include like, okay, now here's the terminology again, but recirculation, you know, wave motion pumps, wave pumps. I want to throw that on there. I personally don't find that I'm actually taking apart return pumps very often and cleaning them. As a matter of fact, if I'm being honest with you, it's not really something I do unless I perceive that there's a problem. Okay. Now, wave making pumps, they do often require, because they're in the tank and they'll get covered in coralline algae. They can get covered in algae, you know, all that sort of stuff. So if it made you feel better to once a year, you maybe undid the unions and run your return pump in some citric acid, do I think that's necessary? You know, but does it make you feel like you know, you're given more life? It's possible, but I sort of want to push back and say that I don't feel like I would just run something in citric acid, because if you're really going to take it out and try to clean it in that way, just take it apart and make sure. Here was my thought on this too. If you're going to take apart a pump that uses a magnet, or if you're going to take it off and service it by just running on citric acid, me personally, I want to examine the impeller, because quite often those impellers start to split or bulge, and you can get a forewarning that the thing's going to lock up. Richard, what do you think?
I don't clean shit, which is a lie. Yeah. I stopped cleaning return pumps a long time ago. When I ran the Amp Master 3K, I was all about cleaning it every 6 months. And the way I cleaned it was, the first few times I took it apart and looked at everything, and it was just gooey. There wasn't anything wrong with anything. The seals were fine. Everything was fine. So then I just, I put an end cap on the bottom and then just poured vinegar into it. And sometimes it was hot, and let it sit in there and then spray it out or not and put it back into place. Closest thing to that I've done lately is the Needle pump on my skimmer. That's like a Baldor pump, right?
Yeah.
The gold pump.
Yeah.
And I've taken that apart twice in the last 8 or 9 years. And I've opened it and I did the same thing. I fill it with vinegar and just let it be clean. I find it's good to do that to the whole skimmer, actually. But every time I take the cowling off, I never see anything wrong with the pump. So I guess I'm going to be in the middle. Okay. Best practices. inspect and clean everything, put it back together. That's best practice, right? Realistic practice, maybe maybe take the hood off and look to see if there's any problems, but I wouldn't mess with the seal or anything like that unless there was a problem.
Now
And also no, I just want to add this real quick.
Yeah.
Anytime you take a pump apart, you better have a freaking spare.
Yes.
Because if you take it apart, something might happen and then you got no pump. If it's your return, have a spare before you do anything to it. Because if you break that O-ring or you lose that screw, you don't have a pump anymore.
Well, yeah, and there's several caveats in here. One of them that you brought up was like, you know, not every pump is the same. So whether you're talking about a big external bow door motor, you're talking about a, you know, submersible, you know, CJ, or you're all over the page. It sort of depends. I'll tell you one thing about an older magnetic drive external pump. Sometimes you don't want to even turn them off because they can lock up and not start again. You sort of want to just run that thing until it dies almost, you know?
Yeah. And then you run it until you decide to turn it off and clean everything because it might not spin back up.
Yeah.
You might have to just get it, just to physically move it and then it spins back up.
Or
Right? That was the thing with power outages is you're worried that your pump won't come back up.
Yeah, exactly. Or, you know, another scenario, you have, let's say you have a gyre pump up top and you have a very energetic reef where a lot of calcification is going on. And that could be a problem. You just happen to have, you know, this pump that just gets coated with CCA, with coralline algae, just coated and just gets messed up if you don't clean it. I feel like in that situation, you could just, you don't have to take it apart, just get in a bucket with citric acid and put it back on. Because like Richard was saying, it's very true. Sometimes you take it apart and your problem came from how you took it apart and not anything else that was going on.
I've been running gyres since they came out because I love that different pumps are different form factors and do slightly different things. I'm loving the idea that I might be able to control a Nero now with my Apex because it's a different form factor. So I'm probably going to play with that in the new year. That said, sometimes with like a wave pump, a propeller pump, I'll take the screen off and scrub the blades with a toothbrush real quick. And then just put the screen back on. Anything more than that, I don't do.
I do that with a towel.
Sure.
I take a grungy towel and I rub the blades.
Yeah. If I actually want to clean it, I don't take it apart. I just put it in a bucket. I actually made a thing. I got to make a new one that will, I made basically a big,
specimen container.
I'm sorry, it's in the other room. Yeah, it's a specimen container that fits my pumps. So citric acid goes into there, and then I just move from pump to pump and have them set on a cleaning mode. And that's how I clean my waves. Works really well. And that's how I clean gyres, except I use a bucket that the gyre fits in. Otherwise, you know, I've got, you know, maybe once every 3 years I have something go wrong with the gyre and then I clean them and they're fine. And the same with the waves and the same with everything else. It's just kind of like, my feeling is that with the cost of pumps now and the fragileness of something like a gyre, I'm going to lose my mind and throw things at the wall if I try to take it apart and put it back together and then end up having to buy a new pump anyway.
Yeah.
So I kind of got on the train of my pumps are consumable.
Yeah.
And as soon as I made that decision, the pumps kind of stopped not going bad. They kind of, you know, I've still got 2 brand new Fluval SP6s because they just didn't go bad.
Which is a nice problem to have.
Yeah. I think I've only got 2 of the original gyres left. So when that goes, you know, then I'm going to have to figure something else out because at this point, gyres, except for that new one, which I think is too small, don't talk to the Apex. So I'll have to make a decision at some point.
So what I want Lawrence to do is let us know in the comments if we fully answered your question. You know, we went off on some tangents there. And if you have a specific part of your question that we didn't quite hit on, you know, just let us know in the comments.
Yeah. And I think if we didn't answer it directly, yes is the answer.
This is just Rich babbling.
This is just Rich babbling.
Champion Lighting and Supply. Champion Lighting and Supply. That's their official song.
What do they sell?
They sell lighting and supply. No, man, this is another great company that sells all sorts of cool stuff. Sometimes some stuff you hadn't, they have some stuff that I used a long time ago that's real cool that you don't see much. Not a lot of the other online retailers are selling it. They sell some niche things. I use them for wholesale. They do wholesale, and I'm very grateful for them for that. So people who do what I do, stores or maintenance companies, whatnot, look them up because they can help round out your offerings.
Yeah, and they also are fish store owners. So it's kind of nice to support a company that's supporting hobbyists, directly where the rubber meets the road. So we dig Champion Lighting and Supply, and Todd Krunkel. That's what I'm calling him from now on forever. I don't care. I think he's him and his whole team, their heart's in the right place. So
it's right here.
I love that they are supporting us, and I want to support them any way we can.
Champion Lighting and Supply.
This is just Rich babbling.
This is just Rich babbling.
All right. Let's move on to our friend Rob. We got a guest on the show. Our guest is Rob Mougey. And if you don't know who Rob is, there's something wrong with you, pretty much. Rob has been a staple in the aquarium world for a million years. Rob has been at every MACNA that's ever happened. Rob has been instrumental in MACNAs for many, many years. And we're not going to talk to him about any of that stuff unless we do. But we're going to talk to him about some other aquarium related stuff in regards to business. Rob, thanks for coming on. And is there anything germane to our discussion we're going to have today, or anything else that I didn't say about you when I said who you are?
Nope, I think you covered that just perfectly fine. I've been in the hobby for a very long time. I set up my first saltwater tank in 1982. So I've got saltwater in my veins.
Saltwater in your veins, and you're in Denver.
I am.
Which is definitely a reef keeping hub. So that's and not just like, oh, I'm Rob, I'm in Denver. It's like, no, Rob's, you go to Denver, you're talking to Rob if you want to talk about aquariums. So
we are very lucky, very, very lucky to have a core group of very talented aquarists here, especially some very powerful shops. And of course, Reef Stock started here.
Right. So thank you for spending time with us today. You're on because you sent me an email saying that we're dumb. But you said it much nicer than that.
Well, I was listening to you chatting a little bit earlier about some of the businesses that are in the hobby, right, that are supporting the hobby, selling product into the hobby, and how those businesses need to be more involved with promoting sustainability and providing some governance. Right, guidance might be a better word. It is still the Wild West as it relates to some areas of the hobby that we all enjoy. And I know in the past I've heard you talk a lot, Rich, about, we have basically three different pieces that come into play, right? We have the trade, which is the live goods side of the world. We have industry, which are the folks that are supplying us with all of our hard goods, and then the retail side of the world. And then, of course, there's the hobby. And oftentimes the hobby has been expected to step up and provide some ability to put some controls in place or guidelines or other services. And that's not really the role of the hobby, which I think you made perfectly clear, right? But you started looking at some of the folks that...
Yay, me!
Exactly. You started talking about some of the folks that were producing videos, right? And folks that were marketing products to us as hobbyists. And certainly there's a nice education piece that comes along with those marketing videos. And to Ben's point, someone's trying to sell me something, certainly. But if I can get some education along the way, well, more the benefit for me. But when we look at those companies, when we start looking at the folks that are putting out videos, and you brought up the Bertram Capital side of the world and Aperture, those are fairly small players in the world of aquatics. When you look at the pet care industry overall, aquariums, certainly marine aquariums, are just a very small fraction of all of the money that goes into that, right? Most of the dollars are in furry type critters,
Right.
right? Dog, cat, rodents. Then we get into reptiles and birds. Then you get into freshwater. And finally, you get down to those of us that play on the marine side, right? The saltwater side. It's a very small piece of the business. But we've not had anyone step up and take charge. And, when you start looking at some of those bigger players that come into the picture, we step outside of, you look at Bertram Capital, they have a total equity funding of market cap of about $1.3 billion, right? But
Right.
that crosses a number of other things that they do. But if you step up the ladder a little bit in industry, who do you have? You have the two big players, which are Spectrum,
Right.
and Central Pet and Garden, right? And both of those are in the 2.4 or $2.2 billion range. They are the ones that have the funds that could help bring some of those assets to the hobby. And, as you start walking down that chain, you look, Petco is almost $2 billion in market cap. Those folks have the revenue. When you start getting into the wholesalers at 104th or California, you start talking about the folks out of Florida, right? The breeders, that money doesn't exist at that level there. Now, certainly we're talking tens of millions for some of those businesses, but it's not the B word. It's not the billion word.
Right.
And I think that's the key, that we need to get more involvement from the industry side to help bring together some of those resources.
Okay. Now I think I understand what's going on with our conversation. I think I'm looking at Aperture and Bertram more specifically for two reasons. One, because they're what's happening. They're making noise.
Absolutely, they are.
The other reason is because I think they represent the reef side of the hobby more systemically than the other brands. And I could be wrong on that, but at the same time, and maybe in addition to, they are the ones that it seems to me are putting out any kind of content about the marine hobby in a way that the other ones aren't.
Yeah.
Agreed. I think when you look at Spectrum and Central, we're not getting that kind of input from those very large organizations.
Okay.
But guys, can I say something real quick? So yes, I damn well can. No, so I was in retail for 10 years in fish stores. I remember having this feeling about Central back in the day. Probably mostly, felt like that in the early 2000s, because at that time, Central was buying up everything it could get a hold of. And I don't know if it's a human thing, but whenever some giant company starts buying up stuff, it's like, a lot of us just feel like, ooh, evil, And, when the dust settles, I don't know, is it really all that bad? But, Central's quiet. They don't make content for, and sometimes the content created by a large company feels icky because damn well they're guiding you, pushing you, prodding you, whereas I think nowadays, correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like Central's pretty quiet and I don't hear anything from like, a company like Spectrum. They sort of sit in the shadows and make money and don't make YouTube videos to tell you what to buy.
No, I agree. I think both of those companies are not well connected to the hobbyists like we see from the folks at Aperture or what we see from other folks that are doing videos. If you step back a little bit, in addition to the BRS videos that come out, we also have videos from saltwateraquarium.com, right? And other entities that are producing content to try and help educate. But those players are not at the same level.
Right. And they certainly don't talk to each other.
No.
I just so people understand what we're talking about the idea of content with a mission rather than content. And none of us mind branding, right? I mean, a lot of us a lot of the speakers I know who've done MACNAs in the past, squint a little bit about having their talk have bulk reef supply under it in perpetuity. Right? Because it's like that's saying that there's some implicit thought that there's a connection there now that we may not want to be connected with, not necessarily because, we hate big reefing, just because now it seems like we are a mouthpiece for them. It gives us a connection that we didn't necessarily believe or have, but it's definitely there in the zeitgeist. But the one I was actually wanted to point out was, so BRS does a video about, feed pumps for their calcium reactors. Great. Some interesting stuff, right? And in it, they discuss, should you push or pull the water through your calcium reactor? And as far as I could tell, this was like almost a non-discussion ever until this video. And the only reason it was in this video, in my opinion, was because they wanted to have something to discuss about a new thing that they were selling.
It's a sly way to make buzz.
And we're still talking about it today. There's still debates, even though it's pretty much understood you want to push. And it was when they made this video, they, if you're making a video to get eyes on it, you want something that people are going to see as controversial and talk about. But we're still, I think that video was 8 years ago. There's still an issue that they developed an issue to sell a product. And that's the kind of thing we kind of go, now we're living in the dumpster fire, the ashes that are still burning because you started it when you didn't need to do that. It's a perfectly fine pump. I use them, but it's, you made all this side discussion and energy that just didn't need to be used. I could be wrong.
Well, you created noise that didn't necessarily have to be created. But the other side of that coin is that, and to your point, these businesses are in, quote, business to make money. And just because something is marketed doesn't mean it's bad, right? It's right. Marketing is educating me or educating us about products and how we use those products. And if we didn't have companies that were making a profit, well, we wouldn't have a hobby because we wouldn't be able to buy things. And so I agree with you that it's unfortunate when sometimes things get introduced that didn't need to and cause noise and confusion. But at the same time, unless we have that kind of input into the hobby, we don't get an opportunity to talk about the various ideas that come into play. And just because one organization presents an idea doesn't mean that the idea should be broadly accepted by everyone.
Right. And then there's the idea of what is broadly accepted. Part of me now, if you guys don't know this, I think about this stuff all the time because I'm an idiot, but I'm always teasing apart, trying to understand and think about the meta hobby and the meta industry and right. And we don't care that there is some, I think everybody understands the idea that if somebody is producing content, generally they want something, they're looking to get something back, right? And I don't think anybody's got a problem with that. I think people have problems when they think it's disingenuous.
Absolutely.
When it's not transparent, or if it's, what's the right word?
Flat out wrong.
If it's gratuitous, if it is simply to make money, if it is trying to take advantage of what people don't understand, or with things that may not be okay, it's like selling magic rocks. There's two things going on social media advertising right now that we were going to talk about. We'll talk about real quick now. There's one called Magic Rock, which nobody actually knows anything about. It's some kind of porous rock. They say it's imbued with bacteria. No way to tell if it is or it's not. And they're saying it's magic. It's magic. It's magic.
It's the new Eco Aqualizer. And
if you put it in your tank, it's worse than the Eco Aqualizer, in my opinion. It's magic. It just works. Testimonials. It just works. It's been a while since I've seen a steamroller of of bullshit ideas being used to sell a product.
Oh, absolutely. We are not immune in our little hobby of crazy ideas of the latest colored water additive to make your tank perfect. And it's really hard for especially for newbies to be able to sift through the noise.
Yeah.
Because they always want to glom onto the thing that looks like this is going to make my tank better because I made a mistake and this will prevent that mistake. And
Right.
the reality is the fewer things they put in and the fewer things they touch, the better off they're going to be.
Right. Great. So, okay, here's this magic rock. It's some rock. It's likely bullshit. Fine. It's pretty obvious if you've been around at all, even though they got a lot of people buying their product, apparently. There's another one out that I've just started seeing this week. And it's interesting to be, I'm seeing these in, like paid advertising on social media. It's not being shared by people. It's the algorithms are feeding them to me, mostly on Facebook. But I think Facebook
just being targeted at aquarists.
Yeah. I think Facebook is also
money.
struggling to know what to do with me nowadays because I don't post so much. But it's like some kind of copepods, whatever. Jumpstart your reef or get it back to where it should be, realign everything.
Chakras.
Brought to you by a real PhD.
They say that in there?
Yeah, that's their bottom, that's one of their main things, which is, of course, if you look at the skeptical reefing experts, it's like, oh yeah, no, that's total argument from authority. I don't know what kind of PhD he is. He seems to be an actual person who has dealt with this kind of stuff, and he may know stuff. So he may just be adding that because that's the kind of thing you add to your ad if you want to make it feel like you have authority, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know about that one as much, but it's definitely firmly in the weasel world category. So it feels to me like the more we don't go, look at this weasel words, look at what they're doing. Look, BRS seems to have made this whole thing about pulling through your calcium reactor into a thing we have to deal with. I think they popularized, using dry walk and stuff in a bottle as the magic way to start a tank. And then 15 years later, they went, oh yeah, no, we don't do that anymore. Which is especially infuriating to those of us who were at the beginning going, that's a flawed idea. That is an incomplete idea. So how do we deal with that? And then I want to hear about different organizations. And I also want to talk about what Reef Factory did this week.
Sure. Yeah, I think you have a really good question about when it comes to players that are bringing ideas because they are simply promoting a product. And the reality is oftentimes those products aren't long-lived, that have some sort of shaman attached to them, we twirled a dead chicken around over our heads and threw some holy water on it, and lo and behold, our aquarium got better. It just doesn't work that way. And I think the problem is that it's really hard to tell what better is, right? So how do you define better? And what one person interprets is very different from another. And I certainly agree that we don't have in the hobby a mechanism to call out what we see as potentially bad players, right? Or good players that sometimes have bad product.
Right. Or anything that we just want to squint at and think is a bad idea. It's
right.
And we're scared to call it out, right? Our hobby is small enough and incestuous enough and Wild West enough that it feels like, I was thinking about this today. I often don't mention BRS because I feel like I just don't want to have a fight with BRS, and that's not what I want. I don't want the fight. I want a discussion about these small topics.
Sure.
All of the ICP stuff that we did, in 2015, it wasn't to fight with Triton and call them assholes. It was to look at what they were offering and see what it really was. And we had some questions.
Sure.
And that was very hard in my life for a good 8 months. So that makes it even harder. If you're a dealer, not even if you're an LFS, you can't badmouth anything because then you people will make your lives harder when you want product from them.
Mhm.
You can't badmouth a shipment that came through because those people won't ship to you again, but they'll ship to everyone else. If you're a distributor, you can't badmouth a product because they won't sell it through you anymore.
Right.
So it's really hard to do it. What do you oh, and they won't support my show. They won't advertise with me, or they won't support, a
I don't
trade
want
show.
their advertising. I don't want fucking Magic Rock advertising.
Do you want BRS advertising?
Honestly, no. What the fuck did we start this podcast for? It wasn't to get BRS advertising for us. Do I want that money? Sure, but I don't want the name at this point. I don't want that a name associated with this podcast.
Now, I don't mind that at all. I don't want to fight with them.
No.
And I would like them to think of us, or me, I don't really care what they think of you. When they think about making content and they think, Mel, let's step this up and make the content this much better. Maybe Rich is one of the people we should talk to about that, because he won't shut up about it and he seems to have a bunch of ideas about what we should do. Instead of thinking, fuck Rich, he said he doesn't like us, right? I mean, I don't care so much. My giant fragile ego wants everyone to love me and to use me.
And it's possible they're not thinking about you whatsoever.
Oh, I'm sure they're not thinking about me at all.
Yeah.
Well, they might think about me a little tiny bit because I won some stupid award,
but
that isn't stupid, but that made people think about me some.
Yeah.
And I'd like to not have enemies. Yeah.
Well, let me ask this. Let me grab the steering wheel for a second. So I was obviously associated with Eco Aqualizer a million years ago. So a company like Eco Aqualizer, a company like Magic Rock, there was someone that made this power filter thing not too long ago that ionized. It felt like the same.
Oh yeah.
Can you seriously tell me, like, those people aren't thinking like, oh, this is going to be the next protein skimmer or under gravel filter? It's just a money grab. They're going to and siphon off as much money they can, and hopefully they're figuring that maybe they have delusions of grandeur. They think it's going to, be the totally new thing. But, part of me thinks that they're just grabbing the money they can while they can.
So those are what I call nefarious actors. They are, and I don't think we have that many of them.
No, agreed.
We used to have more, and a lot of them have vanished, but they're sneaking back in again. When I say, so I think, Ben, maybe Eco Aqualizer doing a thing like that. Yeah, no, they had one product and they're selling it. So it's a lot easier, I think, to see if they are being nefarious or not, because that's all they've got, right? But a distributor, essentially, like Aperture, has got a lot of stuff, and they're really kind of reselling stuff mostly.
Right. And if you're a distributor and a company approaches you and I have this brand new product, and here's what we've done to demonstrate this product has value, they then purchase said product. The question becomes, who's responsible for showing due diligence? And I contend it's the manufacturer, not the distributor, right? The manufacturer should be the one proving that their product does what it says. Yes. And if I'm a distributor and I buy said product and then resell to other locations with information that is not accurate, I'm not the one who contributed or caused the problem, but I'm certainly, I'm not the one who wants to trash, $250,000 worth of product either.
Right. So that's I'm just following orders. I'm just following orders. So if it's just orders I was following. Yeah, I know distributors have gotten grief for that before, when they just throw up their hands and go, well, I'm just reselling this. It's right. Like, when
you're a distributor, what are you doing? You're running warehouses, you're providing shipping services, you've got an online point of sale, right? But a distributor isn't in the position necessarily to be able to prove whether a product behaves the way the product claims.
Agreed.
And that becomes the challenge, right? And they shouldn't be looked down upon or castigated because that's not their role, right? They're not that's not their role to perform. Now, having said that, some of them have started providing those educational videos where they're actually testing products and doing comparisons, and some of those have been interesting. You also wonder how, should they find something negative, is that necessarily always going to be brought to the forefront?
Right.
That's always a question.
Yeah, which is the whole reason why we have peer-reviewed science, is to avoid exactly that issue, right? The whole reason you want independent testing is because the independent person doing the testing has nothing to risk. They've got nothing that they don't have a dog they don't have skin in the game.
Right.
So but when you get the distributor itself, did BRS start as a distributor or did they start as a product manufacturer? Do you remember?
Well, BRS started as they were manufacturing the reef chili, and then they started picking up lines to be able to do mail order sales, which turned into internet sales. And so, when you look at bulk reef supply, it was just like Marine Depot and some of the other organizations that were selling product and maintaining warehouses.
Yeah.
That's a big investment.
If I remember too, their sort of shtick in the beginning was, buying these chemicals and all this stuff in bulk to have clubs or whatnot, like buying these large amounts and they're trying to sort of get across the middleman.
Right. So it started, as a lot of these companies do when they're small, here's a need, a reasonable need. We can fill this reasonable need and make some cash while we're doing it. Right. That's great. No one's got a problem with that, right? At the beginning with some of the BRS videos, there's, as always with any experiment, there's, I wish this would be more robust. I wish they would actually give us the data instead of, have it verbally drop throughout the video, because it's really hard to understand what actually happened. There are reasons we have significant figures in scientific papers, because we just want to get a quick look at what is going on here. We don't want to have to recreate their experiment to understand what they did. We want to understand what happened and then go back. So we generally had no problem with their stuff early on. I think as they grew and became more of a distributor, it starts to look like CVS, which really kind of generally has nothing to do with the product being sold. They're just selling a product and saying whatever it is that will get people engaged to buy their product. Now, I don't know how CVS-y BRS is. I have no idea what's going on with there now. I can only see content as it comes out. But that's and this all changes with scale, right? As you get bigger, first of all, you get more money, and then you have more people who you have to make happy because of that money. So it does become harder. So I don't know if BRS is one we should squint at everything they do, or if we should even squint a little bit extra because of the scale of their big reefing footprint. I do know that we should be somewhat squinty of everything. So, and especially if someone's coming out going, here's this new product, you should buy it. It's so great. Buy it from us. He's not going, well, are you just, are you peeing on my leg and telling me it's raining? Or, it gets hard to tell.
It does. It does.
So I don't know what to do about that.
This is just Rich babbling.
This is just Rich babbling.
PolypLab is the place to lab your polyps. PolypLab. We've been powered by PolypLab for a long time, and it's a real visceral feeling. I love it. It's very energizing.
And if it's too visceral, you could use here the PolypLab glue lit, right? This is their CA glue. It's great. It's a glue lit, so it's just the right amount. If you're doing 3 or 4 or 5 frags, this is your friend. If you've got to glue something underwater and you don't want to use a whole big tube and waste it, this is your friend too. Put it right underwater, squeeze that all into the crack you wanted to spread around. Glue lits. We like them very much. There's more too, but we're not going to talk about that because that's not how these ads work.
One at a time, baby. PolypLab, we love to be powered by you.
This is just Rich babbling.
This is just Rich babbling.
While we're here, I want to talk about Reef Factory, then we'll get back to the organizations that you were talking about so we can get a good general view of it. This week, Reef Factory has been working with small independent distributors for the last year to develop and improve and get visibility for their suite of products for reef keeping. And that's great. That's what we want. And, you know, a bunch of people were excited about some of the products, and a bunch of people were excited to have another player in the kind of controls market. And then it turns out that Reef Factory decided, never mind about these independent distributors. Aperture made us a better deal, so we're going with Aperture. So that
all about margin.
It's all about margin, right? So what that does is it screws the smaller distributors that were working with them kind of completely, actually. And now, you know, the first question I have, I would imagine, Rob, you had too, is what contract did you have with Reef Factory to be doing the work you were doing? This is the problem with our smallish industry that is still the Wild West. You ain't going to get a contract with Reef Factory to develop their programs. You are taking a risk that they're going to screw you exactly like they screwed the ones that they screwed.
Yeah. You're doing a handshake agreement that you're going to help because you see an opportunity to be able to not only improve a product, but be able to generate revenue on a product that you've had a hand in crafting, or at least providing some direction for.
Right. And it's not
reaching for the stars, though. I mean,
who's reaching for the stars?
Everybody, companies,
Yeah.
people trying to make a dollar, trying to feed their family, trying to get bigger. And you could put morals wherever you want it. I mean, business morals are not the same as people morals.
No,
well, I think kind of I mean, at a certain point you go, business is business, and you're going to get screwed in business because the reality of business is fuck you. And nobody wants to say that, but that's really, that's what it is, right?
Yeah, business is contract law.
It's contract law. Basically, Ben, what they did would be like me going, "You're out, Ben. Rob's the new co-host."
Or telling me the whole time, "Ben, you're not ever going anywhere. We're going to do all this, blah, blah, blah." And then next week, like, "Oh, Ben, you're out of here. Pack your desk, and Rob's here."
Yeah. In fact, though.
So, yeah, they did the whole switcheroo.
We have more documentation and contract kind of things between you and I and Snowman than it seems like these independent distributors had with, it was all on a handshake and a hope, right?
Yeah,
correct.
The problem is with this one. So I've been watching Aperture conglomerate and kind of go, we don't know yet. We don't know. We'll see what happens. Plus, there's nothing we can do about it, right? This one made me go, ew. This one made me go, that's harsh, because while I'm sure Reef Factory is saying, well, we're still going to sell to you, small independent distributor, they are probably not cognizant of the games that go on with pricing and discounts that happen. A lot of the products that come from a seller who sells their own products but also sends to distributors is they play games with the manufacturer's suggested real price. They play games with how much you can put things on sale, and then they put the things on sale themselves. So if you've got something on a 10% markup, and on the distributor website that sells to the public, they sell it for 15% less than what you get it for. You can still sell it, but you're competing against them, who you really can't compete with at that level.
Right.
So
you're competing against the small customer, the local fish store, the smaller distributor. It's those folks that end up losing out.
So yeah, the point is, you pull the rug out from the small players. Now the question is, does that matter?
Well, let me provide a caveat for you.
Yeah.
So you have a manufacturer who sees an opportunity to build their business by going with a larger provider who not only can better market than these other individual organizations, but is going to resell their product to those other distributors. And so it's that rising tide effect. If I can get more attention to my product, if I can move more product within whatever country they're trying to push it into, then there's an opportunity for others to be able to purchase that product and resell it locally to whoever their customers happen to be. The end result is the big player gets the better margin, and the mid-level players lose margin but still have an opportunity to sell product.
Yeah, and so what I think is another weird part about this one is Aperture already has one or two products in their stable that does everything that Reef Factory does.
Mhm.
So I'm just I have no idea what their plan is. It seems really weird to bring in a third product that does the same thing as your flagship two products already do. So the question is, and maybe Rob, you have some idea or thoughts about it, is this VC just buffing out their portfolio in an effort to get ready to do what VCs are in business to do? Or do they think is there actually a way to market direct competition to the thing that you want to make your most money on because you're invested in it at every level of its production?
Yes, I may be invested in it at every level of its production, but I also have another opportunity to provide an alternative that allows me to make margin on the alternative as well. So if my consumer doesn't choose from product A, I have a product B category that they can pick from. I still get the sale, therefore I still make revenue.
So it's like DeWalt at Home Depot, which has now been replaced by Ryobi.
Right.
Which probably has pissed Home Depot off that they spent 2 decades pimping DeWalt stuff. Well, maybe not. Actually, they probably were pimping, and then Ryobi came in and went, well, we'll give it to you cheaper. You might as well carry us too.
Right.
It's really interesting.
Oh, it is. It's fascinating. But again, we're talking about, percentages on large volumes of product that will return a better margin for an organization. And the fact that we happen to like those products, well, that's just a benefit for us, right? But for the middle folks, that becomes a little more problematic because it reduces their ability to be able to make as much money as they were hoping to.
Well, and then you go back to the stores. I mean, stores are having a rough time right now just because the economy. And then all these waves and currents in all this manufacturing and VC type stuff, and they're just a little store. Man, they have just got to be eating it, right?
And there's all kinds of shit that goes on with the little stores, right? They have to play games with the vendors and the manufacturers to be able to carry it. Then they have to deal with whatever markdowns, like I already talked about, which apparently, with Black Friday and everything becoming more and more of a black month, the whole month is right. There's no way a brick and mortar place can compete with the sales that are going on at the production level that sell to the public. I mean, why would I ever, this month, there's no, and they have these sales throughout the year all the time because they're trying to get rid of product or whatever. But if you've brought in 100 pieces of their widget and you're going to put them out and sell them, and they sell them for 10% less than you paid for them, you're just screwed with all this stuff here. Plus, if I carry, we can use reward. If I carry Apex, if I carry Max Spec stuff, am I going to carry Red Sea? How much, how many gyres do I need to have at my store because I want the one other pump that Red Sea has that nobody else makes, but they're going to make me carry all of their stuff when I already carry 2 lines of products. And now I've got in my store with my 100 square feet of sales space for dry goods, I've got 3 full lines I'm supposed to be representing. And how am I supposed to sell that to anybody coming into the store?
Well, and that's a valid point, and I think that's one of the big, Ben brought up the fact that our local fish stores really are feeling a lot of pressure, right? Their rents are going up, their revenue is down for many of them, not for all, but for many, right? There's a lot of pressure from manufacturers to carry product, and then how quickly does that product move within your environment when you're up against the internet retailers that are in place? And the way that the local store gets closer to that is by upping their purchasing amount. They'll get a better discount, but now I sit on more product, and so it becomes a very challenging piece, right, for that local store. And when I hear, and again, I know everybody complains about things are expensive in the hobby, but remember that the person running that local fish store that's selling you your whatever snail you're buying and the food you're buying and the latest coral, they need to make enough money to pay themselves and support their family. And so there's that constant pull and push that happens, right? It's very difficult to be a fish store owner today.
Right. And you could be a shitty fish store owner.
Absolutely.
And there are shitty fish stores. I think a lot of them died since
Yes.
2008, which is nice. But
I mean,
we used to have this discussion about stores, and I would be really on the fence because a shitty store does a lot of bad for the hobby. But but most stores don't start out shitty. There's few do, sure, but most of them are forced into it because of the realities of margin.
And they have to exist for you to even bitch about them.
Right.
Right.
This is just Rich babbling.
This is just Rich babbling.
Hey, beefers. Thanks so much for being beefers. If you've made it this far into the show, and you enjoyed the show, actually, I wonder if there's somebody who just made it this far into the show and they're just hate masturbating the whole time.
They're just confused.
They're just so, and they just can't stop. Even that person. We've got this. We've got merch. We got merch on our website at reefbeefpodcast.com. There's a bunch of stuff you can get and order it. If you want to do that, that helps us out. You could buy us a coffee, buy us a beer. That helps us out too. If you just like the show and think, hey, I'm going to buy those guys a beer, that helps us out a lot. You can become a member for the cost of buying us a beer. You can become a member, and becoming a member gets you access to the membership area on the Discord, and also gets you some access to some merch discounts and some other perks as well. So we need to thank you all so much for supporting us. We really appreciate it. And and we dig it. And by the way, if you are a gold beefer or a prime beefer who is going to have a session with us soon, you're going to be contacted by Snowflake, who is a new member of our team who is helping Ben and I not be disorganized pieces of shit. So
Mostly me.
we appreciate Snowflake, and we appreciate all of you beefers helping us out and sharing the show and listening to the show and watching the show. Anything you do helps us out a lot, and we sure appreciate it. Anything to add, Ben, or is it me just stroking people?
That would just be me verbally masturbating. You said it all.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing you like it if people would go onto the Apple Podcasts and give us a bigger rating.
Yeah, we have 80 something ratings, and they're all 5 stars. But I think we have, if you're listening to this via Apple Podcasts, or honestly, it doesn't have to be Apple Podcasts, just on whatever platform, go to that rating thing in that app and share some love with us.
Yeah, and we're at 2,500, 2,800 subscribers on YouTube, something like that. So I think at 3,000, we'll make Ben do some of the things he promised to do. I think it was you were gonna shave your chest and put the hair
Encase it in lucite.
In acrylic, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's easy enough to do.
Yeah.
We'll do that for 3,000.
Yeah. You can own a block of lucite with my chest hair inside of it.
And if you're a beefer, you'll get to see that process happen in advance of the regular public.
Yeah.
Plus outtakes, because there will be some. Thank you, beefers.
This is just Rich babbling.
This is just Rich babbling.
So we have no guiding organization.
Correct.
We have no golden path. We have no yellow brick road. We have no map. We have capitalism.
What industries do?
That's a good question.
Well, I think you could point out a few things. If you look at the reptile side of the world, I think they have a much better organization to help support the hobby of reptile keeping and to provide that guidance and governance that's in place. That's something that we really don't have on the aquatic side.
Yeah. And then, if you want to make a cell phone, there's a whole lot of shit you got to do, a whole lot of hoops. The only hoops you have here is whatever your local ordinances say about opening a business. There is nothing about there's light stuff about animal cruelty, and then you can do whatever the hell you want. There is no best practice anywhere, right?
It's
will
the Wild
be the
West.
death of us.
It's the Wild West. Well, it'll either remain the Wild West or regulation will take over where desired guidance doesn't, or something will happen and we'll get something like US ARC to really get some teeth, or we'll get a vendor or a trade organization that will start trying to get the trade going into one place. It's basically a union in a sense.
Yes.
But I mean,
we
that's almost like the thing I said about on an old show long time ago, on this show a long time ago, to where, like if you're in a divorce, you're either going to figure it out in court between each other, or the judge or whatever is going to figure it out for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and we have seen good examples of those kinds of things that have happened recently. A lot of folks are still talking about what happened in Hawaii. There was a lot of money that was spent. There were organizations that came together, right? Industry donated money to the Pet Action Network, what used to be PJAC. PJAC funded in an order of $500,000, right, to do an environmental impact study to show that, just like the scientists said, that collection was sustainable, but none of that mattered because you still had the regulators and the elected officials that basically said, we don't care about all the truth and the science, we're going to make it go away. So it all takes money to be able to drive. And so, we want to make sure we understand money is not bad, right? It's important that we all make money, but how it's used and how it's leveraged, it needs to be better provided for the industry.
Yeah, we need more money,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because the way to fight the stuff in Hawaii is with money. I mean, it is really the only way to get to the people who are still going no is a blanket advertising campaign, and just keep hammering them with people going over there and giving talks and yada yada, on and on and on. But we don't have the money for that. It's a miracle that they did what they did.
Absolutely.
And it's atrocious that every time it happens, when we know it's going to happen again, the same dog and pony show of asking for money is going to happen again. It just doesn't need to be that inefficient. Although, maybe we're just stuck. We're in the Wild West. It's capitalism. This is how everything works. So many people complain that they want Apple level of service from their aquarium products without understanding the other side of that balance, which is that no one gives a shit about you, the end user, because
Isn't this what
you're
the
not
younger
the money.
Isn't this what the younger crowd is making a lot of noise about late stage capitalism? Isn't that what we're going through here?
Yeah, but it's also nothing new, right? This is, when I first started paying attention to this stuff, maybe in like 2000, this was a whole thing then. It was, and I remember around 2010, it was all garage sellers versus brick and mortar stores. And, if you wanted to get a wholesale account from a distributor or a wholesaler, you had to give them proof of your brick and mortarness. Some places still do that. Some places don't care. So it's not new.
Oh, and I remember
I think
tons of articles about people whining about how the garage fragger was going to be the death of the industry.
Right. And they're now going to be the death of LFS in a different way than back then. Now it's because as a garage person, you get to stay at home until the next show, then go to your show and make your nut and then come home. You don't need to do little sales as much like they used to do in 2010, where it was like, come over to my garage and buy as much. No, now we make our money at shows because there's so many shows and we can make a ton of money. So
Absolutely. And some of those garage sale folk years ago are now some of the wholesale leaders in coral today.
right. Aquatic Collection started as a garage shop that pissed off a lot of the shops. Right. That's what they did. But they were very careful and very slow and very deliberate. They knew starting as a store would be a mistake. So like you can understand, again, this is like the nefarious thing. They're going, we want to sneak into this, so we do it right. And they're still here. No one else is. So
Right.
what else? But so back to orgs. And then we'll wrap this up. It was a very nice discussion because I think you were talking about why aren't people supporting the meta infrastructure and educational infrastructure of this hobby. It's everyone, not just the one we're talking about, which was Aperture, but it's all of them. And then we talked about a lot of cool stuff. And now we're back to it's neat how it's all intertwined.
It is.
So I want to get back to your original point about, and then you said something about the organizations that are around us that we don't talk about so much. So I'll let you try to get us going in that direction.
Well, there are a number of trade organizations that exist that many of the hobbyists aren't familiar with. The one that comes to mind is World Pet Association, right? WPA. They're there to help promote business. They run Super Zoo. They've got other trade shows they put into play. They also provide for a number of resources that help the individual stores that are in place and other businesses that are involved, and not just in aquatics, but all things pet related. There are other shows that are business focused, Global Pet Expo, right? Very business focused, looking to develop, educating the local stores about how they can build their business. There are a lot of activities that happen in that realm. It's funded by industry, right? And then we step into the consumer side of the world. And you were talking about all the different shows that are running across the country. We have for-profit shows, we have nonprofit shows, right? We have groups that, like MASNA, that's a nonprofit group that runs MACNA as a nonprofit show, that's right now trying to resurrect after all of the horrors that happened through COVID. But we also have other for-profit shows. Again, not a bad thing that you're for-profit, but it becomes problematic as the number of shows increase. It becomes more difficult for the manufacturers, the distributors, and the coral sellers, because they only have so much money to spend to spread across those environments. And if I'm not selling directly to a consumer, it becomes very difficult for me to make a decision about where I should invest my dollars to be able to talk to the consumers directly, and what are the added benefits that I'm also supporting when I do that, right? In the case of MACNA, we're supporting education. Right, that's the whole goal. Those videos that you were talking about, right? That BRS was very good about donating the time to edit and to publish, right? Those videos wouldn't have gotten out unless that BRS logo was there,
right?
So there's that piece that goes along with it. But from an organizational standpoint, there isn't a lot of cohesiveness at the hobby level from an organizational standpoint.
Well, I think maybe there's a couple things. One, the importers and the wholesalers, which are the same thing, and the exporters, traditionally, the trade, these specific pieces of the trade, maybe the trade, but these pieces for sure have traditionally been against any kind of regulation, whether it be governmental or self-regulation. Rob and I keep joking about the Wild West, but it really is. It's, collecting animals for people's homes in faraway countries is as close to the Wild West kind of as we get nowadays. Well, maybe the drug trade is about the same. Wow, how amazing that those two things are said. And, okay, so because the wildlife trade used to be really, really bad. Now it's just, it's stupid now, but it used to be awful. Birds are regulated, reptiles are regulated, their hoof stock is regulated, way more regulations than used to be for all of these. And you know, it may only be a matter of time before that hits aquatics. But people don't want that. They want the maneuverability that the shadows give them, which is gross, but I understand it because there's no central anything to be able to help them do it right and make there's no tide coming in to lift all the boats. At the same time, they are stopping the tide from coming in.
No, but as has been the case with the wholesalers and collectors all the time, they don't give you data where stuff's collected. I mean, they're going to say all that stuff is like proprietary information and whatnot. And there's I think a lot of benefits could come from them, you know, talking to each other. Instead, it's like trying to get as much stuff from the ocean as they can while they can, until someone says that we can't do that anymore.
I will tell you, I think things have gotten better when you look at what our larger importers, exporters are doing. I think they recognize that there's a bright light that occasionally gets shined upon them, and I think that they're doing their due diligence, not just because they want to see their business continue, but because they recognize that there are certain things that should be done. Right? This is the proper way to run this business. Let's do it that way. And many of those have also started moving into propagation, right? So we still have wild collection coming in, but many of those businesses are looking at investing in propagating their own stock that they can then sell, with a recognition that some of that wild may not be available much longer, depending on where that is coming from. And I don't think that's a bad thing that they're actually investing in those other aspects of that business as well. But even with regulation, when you talk about, you know, what's regulated on the reptile side or on the bird side, there are still bad actors that come into play. And I think it's imperative that the good actors, of which we have many, they need to call out the bad actors, right? That ability to identify where the problem is and fix the problem. And of course, since we don't have a governing body for those folks, it's now incumbent upon the individual players. And that's where the problem comes into play, because that governing body doesn't exist.
Well, and that's like the whole thing of the plastics industry admonishing the end user to recycle. And it's like, well, quit making plastic. It can't certainly be on the end user. We'll just keep using it as they keep making it.
For sure. So I guess a way to sum up the whole thing is what Ben was saying. Yep, it's capitalism. Welcome.
It is. It's capitalism. And the hard part for the consumer is to know who the good players are.
Yeah.
And it's just that's the unfortunate piece, because there are a number of excellent players that are in the market that get shot at regularly by folks that want to see us go away. And they are doing things properly, and they should accept they should talk more about what they're doing, right? To let us know, let the consumer know why they're doing what they're doing to help promote what we enjoy. And I think that's one area that can certainly benefit. But unfortunately, there are still players in the market that are not at that level.
But Rob, let me ask you, because sometimes I wonder if our society is becoming, you know, with more information, so on and so forth, is becoming maybe too cynical sometimes. Because I remember before there was that Gulf spill. Do you remember how many years ago that was? The big spill in the Gulf, oil over and over. But I remember that was BP. And I just remember for years before that, BP just making all these commercials, how we're going green and we're doing this and we're good for the environment, BP. Then we're going to spill oil all over your Gulf for months on end. Like, so people like me just feel cynical to like, we're doing good stuff for, you know, and I'm like, I don't know. I just don't feel it.
No, I completely understand. That becomes part of the challenge, right? If I blow my own horn, then I become suspect because I'm blowing my horn.
And that makes sense. I mean, we talked about that right at the beginning. That's why you have independent research that checks claims. That's why you don't have cigarettes companies running all the studies about cigarette health, because when they do, they lie.
Oh, indeed. And the challenge of that independent research is who's funding it, right? Because the person doing the independent research has to be paid for their time, and what comes to mind is Andy Ryan.
Right. And we don't have enough of that, right?
Agreed.
There's not enough money for independent research about shit that kills people. Never mind what's going to keep, did this product actually add a bacteria to my tank or not? We're
Exactly.
so screwed. It's so funny. This hobby is so stupid and funny because we all think that it's science and it's more and but there's just no there. It's all million monkeys clawing our way forward all the time. Same discussions going on for 30, 40 years. Fascinating. But maybe the answer really is it's just capitalism and people don't like capitalism. And it's also our democracy, because I think our democracy spends money in ways we get the same capitalistic urgencies in our government, in some of our government officials, where they're there to make their brand bigger rather than to govern better. So it's interesting, right? Growth for growth's sake gets you cancer, right?
Bigger is not always better.
Enough is right. I don't know if you heard this, Rob, because this year I was like, oh, we gotta do more with the podcast. We could do something with it. We could make a difference. And boy, that got frustrating and annoying. And we kind of went, you know what? Let's just be what we are, and we'll be as big as we are. And that's good enough. We don't need to take over the world or rule the world. We're just lucky that we have this pulpit that people support. And let's not fall into the mistake of trying to be as big as we can because growth is success.
Agreed.
I mean, the bigger you get a bigger megaphone, and that's great if you have something you think wants to be said. And again, I don't mean to sound bad on this, but to be as big as we would want to be in our minds, you got to stretch away from the facts a little bit. You got to pander, and you got to try to be everything to everyone. And then you come out of your wheelhouse, and then you're handed that big megaphone. Well, I don't know that all the people want to hear what you say at that point if you're fake.
Yeah, and what big megaphone are we talking about in this hobby anyway?
Well, exactly.
40,000 megaphones, and our big megaphone is never going to be as big as the beginners forum on Facebook, which is wow. Wow. If you haven't seen that, don't, because there's no way to help. It's an avalanche of bad ideas, and there's nothing to be done.
No, it is worse than a dumpster fire.
It's
a grease trap.
Unbelievable. It's a grease trap.
But I want to share one thing, though. I think it's important. We recognize that there are problems that exist in the hobby and the trade that are happening. But I really believe that things are much better today than they were 20, 30 years ago. And that gives me a good feeling about what I do, right? The opportunity I have to be part of the hobby is I recognize that things are greatly improved. That doesn't mean they're perfect. That doesn't mean we don't have, again, problems in certain areas. But I feel much better about what we're doing today than what was happening several decades ago.
And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, siblings, people, I guess if you're not a person, you're not listening. That's why I talk to Rob whenever I get a chance, except when I'm depressed and say I'm going to Zoom with you and then never get back to him. But he understands that completely. But any chance to talk to Rob, not only is Rob smart and has a lot of experience and things to say about the hobby, but he lives firmly in the perspective of this is a good hobby. And I live firmly in the boy, it's really easy for me to jump out of this because of ethical issues. So I love talking to Rob because he always makes me remember that we love this stuff and it's wonderful and a lot of good comes out of it.
Absolutely.
So
Silver lining.
silver lining. So I think with that, Rob, we'll let you go. And much appreciated for jumping on the last minute. And thank you so much for watching the show and reaching out when you had something to say. We really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me. I had a blast.
We'd like to thank everyone who's made this possible, Snowman. And we'd also like to thank Snowflake, who you'll be hearing more about in the coming weeks and months. And we want to thank all the beefers, and we want to thank the sponsors of this episode, which is saltwateraquarium.com, Champion Lighting, and PolypLab. So thanks all of you and the beefers, and we'll talk to you later. Well, no, I did. I killed Jake once. No, ooh, that's
And if you cured cancer, we want to get that in there too.
If only. If
Really?
only.
And I totally forgot what I was going to say because I got all into trying to explain my stupid brain.
Well, that's okay, because I was going to bring up another aspect that we haven't really chatted about, and that's the organizations that exist around the hobby.
Oh, yes, I have that one written down.
Okay.
But there is it's the question. Does that spark anything before I jump into the one of the other two things I want to talk with Rob about before we let him go? No,
Ben?
this is just Rich babbling, and I'm glad you're back, Ben. We figured it all out while you were gone, by the way.
Oh, I knew it. I knew it.
Yeah.
You just had to get me out of the way.
Solved all problems.
Oh, Rob posted. Oh, Rob said thank you.
Oh, cool.
I wrote back, fuck you.
Fuck you, you bastards.
Fuck you, you bitch. Benjamin.
I'm moving the
What are
screen.
you doing?
I'm moving
Now
the
it's
screen.
gonna be different the whole show.
No, okay. Let me put it back then. I felt like I was too high on the screen and I was going to change it earlier, but then I had the thought like Snowman might not like that.
Yeah, but then you did it anyway.
No, I know, because I was like, damn it.
Check down here for their URL because it's not Champion Lighting and Supply. It's championlighting.com. So there you go.
Do we need
And
to
I could be
redo
wrong. It'd be really
Maybe-
funny if Snowman just bleeps us out for saying it wrong.
that? Should we
every
redo
time.
that?
No. You got to keep Snowman awake.
Oh God. Okay.
That's it, right?
I believe that's it. That's all the things with the stuff.
Rocking.